before we jump into the good stuff today, I wanted to just highlight a few things we have going on this month for our mental health, um, focus here for healthy lifestyles in the month of September. So today, Park RX begins, so make sure that you check your park prescription and spend some time outside. We have the workshop right now that you guys are attending, and we're so excited. And then tomorrow, Brooke is going to be leading the QPR training, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer. And this is a great suicide prevention training. It really allows you to jump into those difficult conversations, and you're able to, really break down stigma and barriers when it comes to suicide. So make sure, if you haven't already attended a QPR training, Brooke is so great and you won't want to miss that one. So look into that. And then on Friday the 16th this week, put it on your calendar, bring a friend. We're going to be joining USU for Neff's Loop. It's going to be a fun little hike. So just some things we have going on the docket this week. And next week is full of a lot of great things too. Be sure to sign in for Healthy Lifestyle Points. That's in the chat. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So let me start this here. So this is actually the presentation from today is from Utah Department of Health and Human Services. So this is a state training for employees. So we reached out to them and they gave us the permission to present it with you guys today. And it's all about workplace culture of mental wellness. So how can we develop a culture of mental wellness within our workplace? And we thought that was so great for Salt Lake County employees specifically, and for us to highlight that this month, being so important with mental wellness push. So to get started, we wanted to put an icebreaker in the chat. And the question is, what do you think makes a workplace mentally well? So go ahead and throw that into the chat and we're going to get the conversation started here. Open communication. I love that one. Trust among colleagues, for sure. Respect among everyone in the office. Yeah, these are great. Feeling comfortable around your coworkers, absolutely. No judgment from your coworkers. Yeah, these are so important. And it is true. It's when you feel safe in an environment where you work, right? Where you can open up and talk, not just about work, but just about life, that you feel like you can be yourself. We've got another one in the chat. You don't get disciplined or threatened to be disciplined if you express what you're feeling. Totally. Yeah, I love these. Awesome. Ability to take time for yourself. Yeah, these are really great. I think to add to this is knowing when to take mental health days or knowing when to take self-care days. I think creating a culture of wellness at our workplace, management is okay with you taking those days or recognizes that you need to take those days so that you can perform your best, and so that you can feel your best. So That's awesome. Everything you guys threw in the chat today, we're going to be talking about how we can make our workplaces more mentally well and how we can contribute to that overall feeling of safety, psychological safety in the workplace. Awesome. Okay, so some learning objectives for the day for this presentation is we're going to talk about what it means to have a workplace culture of mental wellness. And you guys have already kind of thrown out some great ideas. But we're going to just dive into those a little bit more. And we're going to talk about how you can contribute to this culture through your actions, through your language, your attitude, and your example. And Brooke is going to take it away and talk about improving work-life balance, how you can break down mental health stigma, and what resources we have available for help. So it's going to be a great presentation today, and I hope that you guys feel comfortable enough to ask questions because we want to create just an environment where you can ask those questions, and yeah, we're going to have a good time today. So what is this culture of mental wellness? And I think it's important to recognize that our culture always goes back to our values and our behaviors. That's what makes up a culture. So if a workplace values and behaviors are often, negative or stressful or full of anger, that's the kind of culture that's going to be fed, right? That's the kind of culture that's going to be felt. And so really making sure that your values and your behaviors as a work team are healthy, are well, are accepting of others is going to create that culture. So, you are what you make it. And I think that's also important, like individually, like as a team collectively, but breaking that down individually. What am I bringing to the table? How am I contributing to this culture? Because you really can change a culture of a workplace just by your own actions and your own behaviors. So really, you can be that change, which is really awesome. But having a culture of mental wellness means that we value mental wellness in our workplace, and it shows that we value it through our actions, including, our written policies or our communications with others or our practices, our goals, and our norms. And so if you are a manager or a supervisor and you're listening to this, I want you to take a moment and just think, are my actions as a manager showing my employees that I care about mental wellness? Am I setting an example of that I care? Because you really do hold so much weight to make other people around you, especially your employees, feel that you care. And when you care, that's when safety comes, and that's when employers feel or employees feel like they can succeed and excel within their work. So you play such a big role in shaping and creating this type of culture. And another thing I want to just highlight is that how you show your team that you care about mental wellness is vital for them to feel like they can trust you, or they can trust their team. It's like we said in the chat, you don't feel threatened to speak up. You feel like what you have to share is valued and accepted. And so I want to hear from you guys. How can you show your team that you care about mental wellness? Throw that in the chat. How can you show your team that you care about mental wellness? Oops. Sorry, guys.
And Jane, I think just adding along with what you've been talking about, another thing, like going along with behaviors and in creating that culture, I think our attitudes have a ton to do with that as well. If we come in, like our attitudes and how we feel about mental health and mental wellness are infectious. If people around are excited, like I wouldn't say excited, but just like willing to talk about it and open to talking about it. And there's more of a positive connotation that surrounds how we talk about it. You're more willing to want to talk about it. Whereas if there's just kind of this negative stigma, this negative attitude that surrounds it, people aren't necessarily going to want to be open and
I
communicate.
love that, Brooke. I agree. Our attitude has so much to do with that type of culture because, when you're around someone that is willing to talk about it, or um, it's like a healthy conversation versus someone who kind of shuts it down or is closed off, you feel that way. You feel shut down, you feel closed off, and then it creates, like, oh, we just don't talk about any of that here. And that can be dangerous, especially if someone is in a mental crisis, or is experiencing feelings or thoughts of, depression or anxiety or suicide. So it is important to create that culture where you don't know what someone else is struggling with. So it's important that if it is a safe environment, um, that you are able to provide others with the help and the resources that they need. So it's so, so important. All right. Do we have anything in the chat?
Yeah, we've got a lot of great comments. So we have taking time for your own mental wellness is a great start to start showing others you value it. Also, being real, start by supporting yourself and others. Being a listening ear and genuinely caring, and then being honest with your team about mental wellness and your own. Prioritize taking time for your mental wellness, whether that's a longer break or a sick day for your mental wellness.
I love that. Thank you guys so much for participating. We appreciate that because as you put in the chat, you not only are are putting out ideas for others, but you're also just reinforcing that you have a culture of mental wellness within your workplace. I love that. Just some um, other ideas, I guess, that can help create a culture of mental wellness, and things that we do within our own team is, we encourage others to take time off. If you are feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, your work can wait. I know that sometimes it feels like it can't, but it's important to take a break because we can we can only run as fast as we have the strength, or as much as we have that stamina. So by giving yourself that break, you're able to recoup, recharge, and refocus, and you need it. You need that time away.
And
Um,
also, just
yeah,
adding on to that, I mean, that's the whole point of working on a team, right? Is, you're there to pick up others when they may not be able to, you know, be at their full potential at that moment. You're there to support each other. Like, hey, if you need some time off, I can help you out with these various tasks, or, vice versa. Like, we're all there to help each other out because we all want to succeed together as a team. And so if you see someone struggling, being able to be there to help them is huge. And I know,
absolutely.
yeah, I've seen that with our own team, and it's really awesome.
I agree. Thanks, Brooke, for sharing that. I think another thing that goes along with that is delegating tasks. This is really hard sometimes, especially, if you um, sometimes it's just easier to just take on the work because then you don't have to explain, you know, how to do it, or you don't have to um, monitor how it's being done or whatever your reason is. Um, Delegating tasks can truly lift some of that weight off of your shoulders. And I think it's important because it allows you to set those limits, but also it encourages someone else to strengthen their own skills within the workplace. So taking time to recognize, if someone in your work team is struggling or you have noticed that they feel like they have a lot on their shoulders, just saying, hey, why don't you delegate some of these tasks to someone else? Because you as a manager or as a coworker, you can take some of that off of their plate, or you can be a little bit more understanding of, okay, maybe they're not rushing to meet this deadline because they're extremely overworked. So it can create this culture where we are giving people a little bit more grace because they're overwhelmed, not with just things in their life, but with the workload that they have. And asking for help, like that is huge. Um, it can help create this culture of being mentally well when you feel like you have that rapport with your coworkers to have, an extra set of eyes or an extra set of hands on a different task. Also, along with that is not only asking for help, but I love it when my managers reach out to me and they say, "How can I help you?" or "How are you doing?" Those two questions mean the absolute world to me as an employee. When I have them just say, hey, you know what? I think you're doing great. I just want to check in. Like, how are you as a human being? How is work? How are you feeling with your task load? Those questions go like they just leaps and bounds for me. So, if you are, you know, having this conversation with another coworker or an employee or an employer for that matter, just taking the time to, or the management, just taking the time to ask them, how are you? How are you doing? And how is your workload? Can I help you? Is there too much on your plate right now? But maybe your supervisor can't take the work from your plate, but maybe they can be a little bit more understanding of where you are emotionally, mentally, physically, and they can provide you with a little bit more grace. So you can build that understanding, you can build that culture of wellness, and that's all a part of it, right? Is just checking in, just being present and living in the present moment with those around you. So I think it's all about asking those questions. And like was mentioned in the chat, setting that example for yourself or for others by starting with yourself. So you might ask yourself, do I feel comfortable telling my supervisor I need a mental health day off? Like, do you feel comfortable asking your supervisor? And if not, then maybe you need to talk about how can I improve the culture of mental wellness in my workplace? Because that's huge. You might ask yourself, do I feel like it's acceptable to set work-life boundaries when I'm feeling stressed out or burned out? Those are extremely important questions, right? If you need time off from work, but you feel like work is so stressful right now, you can't step away. Maybe that's when you should be stepping away the most, right? So just how can you have these conversations? And then questions like these, they they help create that workplace around our mental health. They help create that culture. And so if your answer is no to any of these questions, just remember that, I'm sorry, I'm recovering from COVID. It's awful. Anyway, just to get back, but if your answer is no to any of these questions, just remember that your workplace culture is just continuously evolving. And while you don't always have the power to control it, you have the power to contribute to it. So you get to decide what type of um, contribution you want to make. Is it going to improve the culture of mental wellness or just wellness in general? Or is it going to continue to be difficult to have those conversations? So think
Jane,
about.
we have a comment in the chat. It says, if you don't feel comfortable talking to a superior, it might be good to have a conversation with the Equal Opportunity Office about navigating that conversation.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for putting that in the chat, Sadie. Absolutely. If you're having a hard time, reach out to the Equal Opportunities Office. I think they can be that liaison for you as well. Like if you don't feel comfortable, know that you can find someone to help you have these difficult conversations, because we want you here. We want to create a culture where people feel like they can be safe, and that they feel like they can have those hard conversations with their employers. Awesome. So the next thing we want to talk about is just what sorts of elements contribute to this overall feeling of mentally well within the workplace. And it's connectedness. We talked about that at the very beginning of when people put into the chat, but feeling connected to your coworkers, feeling connected to the population that you might serve, right? Just feeling connected in a deeper way where your beliefs or towards your work are the same, or you're one in purpose when it comes to serving your the county or whatever it might be. Psychological safety at work, we're going to talk a little bit about this, but psychological safety is a big component when it comes to creating this workplace culture of mental wellness. It's allowing you to feel safe. It's a safe space. And understanding that Salt Lake County values relating to mental health and work-life balance, it's important to Salt Lake County. We want to make sure that employees feel like they are safe here and that their mental wellness does matter. Reducing mental health stigma in the workplace and the knowledge of mental health resources and benefits that the Salt Lake County provides. And workplace supports and accommodations for mental health conditions. And this is really important. I think if you struggle and if you live with a mental health condition, it absolutely needs to be, there's accommodations for that. There is help that is there for that. It is 1,000,000% important that you are able to feel like your condition matters and that your condition is being supported and understood. And while others may not fully be able to understand the pain that you live with each day, there is support and there is a safe space for you. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because it is so important that you know that it matters. and it matters to Salt Lake County. So as we continue on, we want to talk about social connectedness at work. This should honestly be your goal. Social connectedness with your team, it is so important. I think back to when I first started at the county 4 years ago and the strides that were made to make me feel a part of the team. We still make those strides today because we care about each other. We're friends with each other. We care about the work that we do at work, but also outside of work. And so it's really cool once you start that culture of social connectedness, it doesn't stop just within the work that you do. It just kind of tumbles throughout your life. And the relationships that you make with your coworkers. So this week, make it a goal to praise a colleague. Write them a thank you note, whether it's handwritten or send them a text message or an email, but get to know someone better or express your gratitude for them. If you are onboarding some new folks into your group, try some new ways that you can connect with each other at work. And we're doing that within Healthy Lifestyles. So I'm going to give you some suggestions or ideas. Take them or leave them, but these are some things that we have found that have worked for us. So, they don't need to take long either. 15 minutes over a WebEx call, or you can, ask your coworkers over Teams or WebEx chat or whatever however you communicate throughout the day, like, what are you preparing for dinner, or what's your favorite food? We like to do water cooler chats where you'll just kind of all take a break, take a water, and you'll have a sip of water. You'll just enjoy time away from your work, and you can just chat for a second. Maybe it's, you want to talk about the game that you saw on the weekend, or the Morgan Wallen concert that you went to, or whatever, right? Where you had this ability to connect outside of work. But when you feel connected outside of work, you're able to connect on a deeper level within work too. So it's super important, and you guys all know that already, but just know that it doesn't have to be long. Another way that you can do it is setting aside a few minutes at each team meeting to chat socially. So whether that's when everybody's trickling in and you have the first 10 minutes to talk about what you saw on The Bachelor, or if you watched Only Murders in the Building, or whatever it is that you guys are into, a book that you're reading, or what your Halloween costume is going to be. 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, that's all you need to just dive in deeper and connect socially at work. It goes a really long way to make you feel like you belong in a workplace, and it just builds that rapport and it builds that connectedness within the team. So yeah, that's a huge thing. Another thing we want to talk about is this idea of psychological safety within the workplace. And psychological safety is a shared belief held by members of a team that others on the team will not criticize or reject or punish them for speaking up or admitting to a shortcoming. And this feeling of safety leads to enhanced creativity, efficiency, and innovation. It also increases feelings of belonging and satisfaction within your work. And I think you guys nailed that right on the head when we first started the presentation, where you feel like you can speak up. You feel like you can share your ideas, whether or not they're like out of the box or in the box, but you can share those ideas and you know that people will be supportive or hear you out with whatever those ideas may be. I think another thing it's important to recognize that along with psychological safety within the workplace is that you support people to take risks and try new things and make mistakes. This is big, especially with your managers or your supervisors. Like, encourage your employees to take risks, to take those or to make those try those new things that they haven't tried before to see if it improves workload or it improves reaching out to different populations. Just know that they have your support. Admitting to mistakes together creates learning opportunities where we can recognize opportunities for growth. That's a big one too, is owning up, taking ownership, whether that's a mistake that you've made or, not taking credit for someone else's hard work. And another way we can create psychological safety is creating a culture of openness to feedback, where people are asking for and requesting feedback on documents, emails, whatever it might be, programs, just making sure that your team is a part of the whole process and recognizing how you can become a better employee. Another way is protecting space for humility and to admit to, sometimes failures or those shortcomings that we sometimes have within work. And just always know that you can voice up, you can put your thoughts, and you can provide feedback and improvement, and you can be that voice for change. And it does start with you. So if you love your workplace culture, then keep pushing towards a better workplace culture, because we always can improve. But if you don't love your workplace culture, and if you don't always feel like it's centered around your mental or emotional or physical well-being, then, like was said, reach out to the Equal Opportunity Office so that you can navigate that hard conversation, so that you can get the help that you need. Because people want you to have an enjoyable experience, especially within the workplace, because we're with each other more than we're with our family. So making sure that we have a culture and a workplace environment where we feel safe and we feel like we enjoy where we're at, and that our desires, our wants are being supported by our supervisor and our management, and especially when it comes to our emotional and mental well-being. So make sure that you feel like you can contribute to making it a better place for you to be. And we talked about this, but there is oh my gosh, sorry. So this quote that I liked over here is that it just says, "Uncertainty is a sign of humility, and humility is just the ability or the willingness to learn." So learn from our mistakes, request and receive that feedback, support risk-taking, and speak up for a better workplace culture when it comes to mental and emotional well-being. And I'm going to turn the time over to Brooke, and she's going to continue on.
Thanks so much, Jane. We've got so much great information thus far, and I'm excited to keep it going. So hopefully you guys are all still with us. I wanted to talk a little bit about how can we have that healthy work-life balance. And with that healthy work-life balance, hopefully comes a mentally well work life. And so we have just a few examples here. First off, take breaks throughout the day, especially movement breaks. I think if we try to just power through the whole day and trudge through, it's we're not as productive. I think our work isn't probably the quality that it should be because you've got to get to a point where your brain just gets to mush or it gets a little numb or it's hard to focus. And if we don't take those breaks to kind of reset our brains a bit, it's hard to keep putting in that good quality work. So, when taking those breaks, give yourself, maybe set a timer, whether it's for 45 minutes, and then give yourself a 10-minute break to go for a quick little walk, to grab a snack, grab some water. Different things like that can really help get you that rejuvenation you need to keep going through that work day. Next, be sure to use your annual leave, your evenings, and your weekends in ways that are going to energize you and bring you joy. Are you using your evenings? Do you find oftentimes you're just so beyond tired and drained from your work day where you just kind of don't do anything? And that's great too. Making sure to take time to do things that bring you joy, whether that's, cooking a yummy meal, spending quality time with your family or some friends, if it's going outside to a park or going for a bike ride, whatever it is, just make sure you're prioritizing your joys in life, because I think oftentimes those can get pushed to the side and other things take priority. And there's a time and a season for everything, but you just never want to let yourself get put on the back burner, because when that happens, we're not filling our cups up. We aren't getting that fulfillment. And I feel like, especially when our cups are full, we're able to be more productive and work, be happier in life in general. It's also important to remember to practice healthy boundaries. So, um, again, these healthy boundaries, they can look different to everyone. I think it's important to decide, where is it that you draw the line? Where is it that you say no? It's also important to recognize, are you taking on more than you can handle work-wise? Is it spilling over into your home life? If so, you may need to reevaluate where things are at. But a few examples of healthy boundaries could look like working only during business hours. I know sometimes it may spill over into later hours, and making sure that your work hours are your work hours, and when you're done and you can shut your brain off from work and move on to your home life. Another example is, if you work from home, creating a specific workspace. Now, if you kind of have just set up at your kitchen table, it's hard to differentiate where the home line is and the work line is, because it's all just kind of mushed together. I think if we're able to set aside a workspace and that is our workspace, it's easier to turn our work brain on when we're in that space and separate ourselves from the day-to-day home life tasks. Also, remember to give yourself permission to say no, especially if it's a non-essential request, or if you are feeling overwhelmed, like we've talked about earlier, reach out to someone on your team and see if they can help you with a specific task if you are feeling overwhelmed. So, a few things to think of. And then again, just remember to communicate your needs. And then lastly, consider using your accrued annual and sick leave for mental health days as needed. And again, mental health days are so important. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you just can't keep moving forward, you won't be able to work effectively. You're not going to have a productive work day, and taking time for your mental health is very important. So taking the time to reset, give your body, give your mind what it needs, will allow you to be more effective and more efficient in your work life the next day and moving forward. So hopefully these suggestions help. I'd love to know, real quick in the chat, how do you guys like to find work-life balance? What are some things that help you recharge, that help you, that bring you joy and fill your cup? If you'd like to share in the chat.
Hillary said set boundaries. Misty said
Right.
camping and backpacking.
I love that. Getting outdoors, being in nature.
Yes. Time in a pool.
Ooh, that sounds lovely, especially with this heat.
I know. Time with family.
Great. These are all great suggestions. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And just remember, just like trying to balance on a bicycle, we must always be making small adjustments to stay upright and moving in the right direction. This balancing act might mean that sometimes we have a lot going on in our personal lives and we have to take time off work, or do our best to keep up at work and ask for help to make sure our work doesn't suffer. Other times we might have a lot going on at work and we might need to work overtime for a short period of time and ask for help so that our personal life doesn't suffer. But ultimately, establishing these small and consistent work-life balance habits can help create a sustainable and enjoyable balance. Next, we're going to touch on reducing mental health stigma. So how can we reduce the stigma? Well, how we talk about mental health at work can contribute to the stigma and misunderstanding, or to creating an open and educated culture around mental health. I wanted to talk a little bit about language. So we want to remember to use language that is inclusive, person first, and accurate. So what do I mean by inclusive? While some examples of inclusive language are using terms such as we and us instead of them. So an example we could say is mental health is something that we all have and is part of a shared human experience, rather than saying that mental health or a mental health condition is just something that they all deal with. Next, we want to include person first language. So person first, an example of that is, we would never say that someone is cancerous. We would say that they have cancer. Similar, we can say that someone has a mental health condition or possibly thoughts of suicide, rather than that they are bipolar or they are suicidal. This person first language shows that the person is not defined by one mental health condition or one experience. And lastly, we want to use accurate language. So mental health stigmas can be perpetuated when they say that people with mental health conditions are crazy or they're violent or other really inappropriate or inaccurate labels. Instead, we want to use the actual diagnoses or the term mental health condition, or respectfully and non-judgmentally describe behaviors and symptoms. Our language is so important in shaping attitudes regarding mental health. And if you are uncertain, it's important to ask yourself if your language promotes hope, inclusivity, empathy, and help seeking? Or is it perpetuating more judgment, discrimination, and misunderstanding? Now we're going to talk a little bit about how we communicate about mental health. How are we talking with our coworkers, with our superiors? Jane touched a lot on this earlier, and I think it's important to remember what are our attitudes and our behaviors perpetuating? Are we checking in with our coworkers about their stress level or their mental health? If you do feel like you're concerned about them, do you feel comfortable to share what you do to take care of your mental health with others? And um, when we notice signs and symptoms of overwhelming stress, anxiety, depression, or other mental health concerns in a coworker, we can have a chat with them privately and non-judgmentally to show that we notice that they are having a hard time and that we care about them. We want to normalize help seeking and conversations about mental health by sharing again what has been helpful for us. And I think this works best again when it's modeled by leadership. For example, a supervisor who shares their struggles with anxiety and their recovery through treatment is modeling that it's okay to not be okay and is encouraging help seeking among their employees. Or a supervisor could also share that they're taking a mental health day off from work to regroup and relax because they've been feeling stressed. And it gives their employees permission to prioritize their own mental health when needed. So I'd love to know, has anyone had any experiences communicating about mental health in the workplace that they'd feel comfortable sharing, or even some techniques that they found effective? And again, you can just, if you feel comfortable, share that in the chat. We talked about this a little, but when you work remotely, this can be difficult. There is a barrier of communication when we're not in person and you're communicating through Teams or whatever other platform you and your team may be working with. But for us personally, with our Healthy Lifestyles team, we like to do daily check-ins with each other on Teams and just see how's everyone doing. And we've seen, especially modeled by leadership, everybody's been able to open up a bit and say, last night was a tough night. I had a rough night with my toddler and they didn't sleep well, and I'm just not feeling my best today. And in modeling the sorts of behavior, we all feel comfortable sharing things, and then we know that and feel supported by our other team members as well, and know that they will be there with no judgment and that they will be there to support us and help us. Don't have any comments, so I guess we can go on to the next slide. So I'd love to talk a little bit about mental health resources that we have for Salt Lake County employees. First and foremost, there's Zero Oaks EAP, and that's the employee benefits it's for benefits eligible employees and their household members, and they offer short-term counseling. There is access to a 24/7 hotline to assist you in a crisis, or they will help you get you connected to a counselor for other mental health matters. They also have resources, caregiver support, financial and legal services, child and elder care referrals, and reimbursement programs. So if you'd like additional information, I've heard great things about Zero Oaks, but we have lots more information on our Healthy Lifestyles website. We also have a tab on our website. It's under our resources tab for mental health resources. There's actually resources pertaining to physical wellness, social wellness, financial wellness, all that sort of stuff on our website, but we do have one specific to mental health resources, and below are just a few examples of what we have available. There's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which, if you didn't know, just as physical emergencies, when those occur, or you call 911, you can now call 988 when there is a mental health crisis or emergency, which I think is such an amazing resource to utilize if you or someone you know and love is experiencing a crisis like that. And we also have a link to their website on our page as well. You can receive free help and counseling for COVID-related stress at the following number, and this is offered through the Utah Department of Human Services. And again, all of the websites for each of these numbers and for additional information is linked on our webpage. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, the Veterans Crisis Line, the Live on Utah, which is the Suicide Prevention Coalition for Utah. We also offer mindfulness meditations on our YouTube page, and it's also linked on our website. That can if you're feeling like you're having a rough morning. I know for me, I was telling Jane this the other day, but I just had a rough start to my morning, and I did one of her gratitude meditations. It really helped me to refocus my mindset and where I was at. And so those can really help and be very beneficial. And they only take 10 minutes from your day, and they can really turn around your day and your feelings. We have yoga classes with Tammy. We have recordings of those, and those are, again, a great way to help reset and refocus your mind and get your body moving a little bit. We have workshop recordings. We've done a lot of workshops on mental health and mental wellness, and so you can find all of those recordings on our website. And then lastly, we offer a QPR suicide prevention training, as Jane had mentioned. I will be hosting that tomorrow, and if that's something that you're interested in getting started in participating in that training, it's the Question Persuade Refer Suicide Prevention Training. It is an amazing resource to you, and I think really everyone should participate in that if you haven't already. Next, how can we have workplace supports for mental health conditions? So the following are suggestions for Salt Lake County managers as to how they can help provide mental health workplace support. And it's important to work with your employees. And again, you want to make sure that we have that culture of being able to talk to one another, and you want to make sure that your employees are willing and open and wanting to talk to you, and so that they can request these things, or that you're offering these things, and to know that these are possibilities, possible supports to them as they navigate various mental health conditions. So teleworking, if that is an option for your employees or for you, letting them know that if they're having an off day, that they can have the opportunity to telework. You can also purchase noise canceling headphones. Can help you kind of tune out whatever else is going on around you, help you focus a little better if that is something that affects you. We can also schedule flexibility. We can leave to assist in accessing treatment, cross-training to provide consistent coverage of job duties, offering a private or modified workspace, offering different equipment or software that may help them be more effectively fulfill their work duties and responsibilities, and then different supervisory methods. So hopefully these suggestions can give you a good idea of how to support your staff. Next, requesting accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. If you are someone who would like to request accommodations, you can do so under the Americans with Disabilities Act. If you prefer, instead of talking to a supervisor, you could contact HR instead. You do not have to disclose a diagnosis if you do not wish to do so. You can just state that you have a medical condition or disability that is causing a challenge at work. And then if your employer requests documentation from a healthcare professional, this can just state that the extent to which your covered disability limits your ability to perform your job rather than actually sharing your diagnoses. This information will be kept confidential and separate from your personnel file as required by law. And know that accommodations are individualized and they may include the same types of accommodations listed on the previous slides that have been talked about. Lastly, culture can be shaped by small daily habits. So just a recap kind of what we talked about thus far, we want to prioritize our mental and physical health. They are absolutely irreplaceable. We, again, have lots of great resources on our Healthy Lifestyles website. I know that our Park RX program starts today, but even if you didn't get a prescription, you can still get the healing mental and physical benefits of nature by getting outside and walking in a park, going for a hike, getting together with a colleague or a friend or a loved one and just getting active outdoors, because nature really does nurture you. Our whole theme for this month. And then if you would like to challenge yourself a little bit, we have this week's mental health challenge is to practice gratitude for the healing power of nature by planting a tree, picking up litter, or writing down why you're grateful for the great outdoors. And again, this can contribute to your mental and physical health and help you prioritize to do that. We can also build connections with coworkers and partners, strive to welcome differing opinions, and remember to be respectful and contribute to a culture of psychological safety, just as Jane had mentioned, and remembering to use the right types of language as we do so. And maintain healthy boundaries, identify what those look like for you and how you can establish them. We want to erase stigma by talking openly about mental health in a positive way and with a positive attitude. And lastly, take advantage of the mental health benefits that are offered through the camp. So I know we just spit out a lot of information all you guys all at once, but are there any questions before we wrap up here? Thank you all so much for coming today, for participating, for your feedback. We really enjoyed presenting to you all today and hope that you were able to